In 1964, a man named Phil Knight was selling shoes out of the trunk of his car. He had no store, no warehouse, no investors, just a folding table at track meets and a dream that most people thought was ridiculous. That man built Nike, the most valuable sports brand in history, worth over $50 billion today. But the story of how he got there is nothing like what you'd expect. Phil Knight wasn't a businessman. He was a runner, a middle-distance runner from Oregon who believed, with absolutely no evidence, that American athletes deserved better shoes than what they were getting. In the early 1960s, American sports shoes were expensive, low quality, and dominated by German brands. Adidas and Puma controlled everything. No American company had figured out how to compete. Phil had a simple idea. What if he imported high-quality Japanese running shoes and sold them in America for a fraction of the price? It sounds obvious now. At the time, everyone told him he was wasting his time. He flew to Japan with almost no money, walked into the headquarters of a shoe company called Onitsuka Tiger, and told them he represented a major American distributor called Blue Ribbon Sports. Blue Ribbon Sports didn't exist. Phil made it up on the spot. Somehow it worked. Onitsuka Tiger gave him the American distribution rights. Phil flew home with samples, set up a folding table at track meets, and started selling shoes out of the back of his car. His first-year revenue was $8,000. $8,000 for an entire year of work. His co-founder, Bill Bowerman, his former track coach, was obsessed with making shoes lighter. One morning, Bowerman poured rubber into his wife's waffle iron. He was trying to create a better sole. It ruined the waffle iron, but it created the waffle sole, one of the most revolutionary innovations in running shoe history. Blue Ribbon Sports was growing, slowly, painfully, always on the edge of bankruptcy. Phil was borrowing money from his father, from banks, from anyone who would listen. Every time the company started to find its footing, another crisis hit. Their Japanese supplier started demanding more control. Onitsuka Tiger tried to buy Blue Ribbon Sports outright. When Phil refused, they threatened to cut him off entirely and find another American distributor. Phil had a choice: give up everything he'd built, or start over from scratch with his own brand. He chose to start over. In 1971, Blue Ribbon Sports became Nike, named after the Greek goddess of victory. A graphic design student named Carolyn Davidson was paid $35 to create the logo. $35 for the swoosh, one of the most recognized logos in human history. Nike's early years were brutal. They were constantly underfunded, constantly fighting for shelf space, constantly competing against giants with unlimited resources. Then, in 1984, they made a decision that changed everything. They signed a rookie basketball player named Michael Jordan. Nike created a shoe specifically for him, the Air Jordan. The NBA banned it because it didn't match team colors. Nike paid Jordan's fines. Every time he wore the shoes on court and got fined, Nike turned it into a marketing story. In the first year, Air Jordan generated $126 million in revenue. Nike had found their formula: find the athlete, tell the story, change the culture. By the 1990s, Nike wasn't just a shoe company. They were a cultural institution. Just do it wasn't an advertising slogan. It was a philosophy that resonated with an entire generation. Phil Knight had gone from selling shoes out of a car trunk to building an empire. But here's what most people don't know about Phil Knight. He almost quit, multiple times. There were moments, real moments, where the company was days away from collapse, where the banks had pulled their credit lines, where suppliers were threatening to cut them off. where Phil sat in his office and genuinely didn't know if Nike would survive the week. He didn't quit because he believed in the shoes. He quit because he couldn't imagine doing anything else. That's the real Nike story. Not the swoosh, not Michael Jordan, not just do it. It's a story about a man who was so unreasonably committed to an idea that the universe eventually had no choice but to make it work. If you want to see another founder who refused to quit no matter what, watch the next video, where we break down how Howard Schultz grew up in poverty, got rejected by 242 investors, and built Starbucks into a global empire.